workers' comp, and how is it different in Colorado for purposes of divorce?
So workers' comp is intended to be a substitute for work-related injuries as far as the injured employee being able to bring a claim against the employer. And so if there is a work-related injury, the exclusive remedy of the injured employee is to bring a workers' compensation claim, meaning the employee, generally speaking, is not entitled to bring a personal injury lawsuit against the employer. Their sole remedy is a workers' compensation claim. Now, there may be exceptions. I'm just speaking very generally. And so workers' compensation is a statutory substitute for work-related injuries, and there's a trade-off there. You know, on the one hand, the injured employee may not be receiving every penny of what they may have been able to recover in a personal injury claim, but at the same time, the idea is that workers' comp is more of a streamlined type of a system where the injured employee is going to get something to help them economically, to compensate for loss of earnings, diminished earning capacity, medical expenses. Faster, it may not be as much, but they're going to have something that they can fall back on. I'll tell you, I practice workers' comp in Georgia. I don't practice it in Colorado. And that theory sounds great, but I will tell you, we litigated everything. And so, you know, in practice, it may not be as fast and efficient a system as it is intended to be, but at least that's the intent of the system. And so under workers' comp, you've got, let's say an employee is injured on the job, they've got to bring a workers' comp claim, and there's certain categories of we'll call it, I don't want to call it damages, but let's just call it damages for lack of a better word. So there's temporary and permanent damages, and there's partial or total disability damages. So there's 4 different categories of damage. So you've got partial, temporary partial disability, you've got temporary total disability, you've got permanent partial disability and permanent total disability. And these are various components of loss that workers' compensation benefits are intended to compensate for. And at least in Georgia, I'm certain it's the same in Colorado, the allocation of benefits to the injured employee is going to be classified under one of those 4 types of disability benefits. Yeah, temporary partial, temporary total, permanent partial, permanent total. And what we look at in the context of a divorce, actually, before I get to this, an injured employee can, with the employer, agree on a lump sum settlement of the workers' comp claim. And so while normally often workers' comp benefits can be a weekly or a monthly benefit, the parties can agree for one lump sum payment. And that lump sum settles all of the claims that the injured employee has against the employer under workers' comp. And so what we get into then is, let's say Eric is injured on the job and he settles his work-related injury for the $1 million that we were talking about. So now there's that $1 million. How does Colorado classify that for purposes of divorce? And Colorado looks at workers' comp differently than personal injury benefits. Colorado uses the analytic approach for workers' comp. So Colorado is really one of a very small minority of states that treats personal injury benefits differently than workers' comp benefits as far as the classification of those benefits in a divorce as marital or separate. So under the analytic approach, the court must determine the loss that the workers' comp, either weekly benefits or the lump sum settlement payment, is intended to remedy. And the portion, if any, of the benefits that is intended to compensate the injured employee for loss of earning capacity and medical expenses incurred during the marriage, that's going to be classified as marital property. But any compensation for premarital, but usually it's going to be post-dissolution loss or incapacity or medical expenses. For example, a permanent partial disability benefit or a permanent total disability benefit. The portion that is intended to compensate the employee post-dissolution, meaning post-divorce, that is classified as that injured employee spouse's separate property. So the court has to do a much deeper dive in determining how to classify benefits under workers' comp as either marital or separate. Now, having said all of that, even if, and I mentioned this earlier, even if workers' comp benefits are determined by the court to be marital, it still doesn't mean that the court is required to allocate a specific percentage to the injured employee spouse versus the non-injured spouse. The court still has to use its discretion to allocate those marital benefits according to the statute in the manner that the court deems most just.